They called me Grace Nolan, a trucker with no past and no family, just a faded teddy bear and fragments of dreams I couldn't explain. But everything changed the day a billionaire stared at that bear like he'd seen a ghost. If you believe in the power of love, redemption, and finding your way home, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. There's more where this came from, and together, we'll uncover the truths buried in the most unexpected places. They say you can't outrun your past. I say they've never driven a semi down a mountain pass at midnight with nothing but regret and diesel fumes keeping them awake. My name's Grace Nolan. I'm 28 years old. Been driving trucks since I was 18. Never knew my parents. Grew up bouncing from one foster home to the next until I aged out of the system and bought my first rig with a loan I'll probably be paying off until I'm 45. But none of that mattered when I got the call for the Aspen delivery. It was supposed to be just another run. Heavy industrial equipment, final stop at some sprawling estate in the mountains of Colorado. Rich guy. Tight deadline. Bonus if I made it before sunset. I was already 3 hours behind. Blame the snowstorm in Utah. And the GPS that rerouted me through God's forgotten highways. By the time I reached the Mercer estate, my rig was grumbling louder than my stomach. The gates alone looked like they belonged in a vampire movie. Ornate iron, gold details, and cameras tracking my every move. I felt like a cockroach crawling into a crystal palace. I pulled around to the service entrance, like they instructed. Killed the engine and let the silence settle like a judgment. For a moment, all I heard was the ticking of the engine and the low creak of something swaying above me. I looked up at the mirror, and there he was, Captain Comet, my stupid little bear, hanging from the rear view like he always had, threadbare, faded navy blue, with a golden star sewn crooked on his chest and a scar on his left arm where I'd restitched him years ago. He's been with me for as long as I can remember. Literally, he's my first memory. Everything before him is static and darkness. The side door slammed open, and a woman in a tailored uniform stepped out like she'd been waiting for me. "You're late." No hello, no smile, no eye contact. Traffic was a nightmare through the pass, I muttered, stepping down from the cab with my clipboard in hand. Mr. Mercer is not pleased. Yeah, I bet he isn't. She turned to open the side door into the house, but before she could say another word, I heard it. The footsteps, heavy, echoing on marble floors, controlled and sharp like a judge entering a courtroom. Then he appeared, Calvin Mercer, the man himself. Late 50s, perfectly styled silver hair, and a suit that probably cost more than my entire truck. Everything about him screamed power, entitlement, and impatience. He stopped in the doorway and just stared at me like I was something that had crawled out of his drainage pipe. 3 hours, he said. His voice was cold, sharp. 3 hours. I've been waiting on a simple delivery. I straightened my shoulders. I've dealt with men like him before. Men who think blue collar means beneath them. Men who see dirt on your boots and forget you're a human being. I apologize for the delay. Roads were icy, and the last leg was... I'm not interested in your excuses, he cut in. You people always have excuses. You people... There it was, that old sting. I could feel the heat rising in my chest. He looked me up and down, my steel Tui boots, the grease on my jacket, the calluses on my hands. Do you even realize how much your delay has cost me? My time is worth more in a minute than your salary for the month. I bit down on the reply burning in my throat. I'd done this dance before. Don't escalate. Just deliver. Sign the form. Get out. Don't give him the satisfaction. But then something changed. He stopped talking mid-rant, froze completely. His eyes weren't on me anymore. They were fixed on my truck, or more specifically, my mirror. Captain Comet. He stared like he'd seen a ghost. I followed his gaze, confused, and then I saw it. The way his lips trembled, the color drained from his face, his hand lifted unconsciously, like reaching for something he'd lost long ago. Where did you get that bear? He whispered. I blinked. What? He stepped closer, his entire body trembling now. The bear. In your truck. The blue one. Where did it come from? I've had it forever, I said, suddenly uneasy. Why? He didn't answer. Instead, he walked past me, straight to the passenger side of my cab. He placed his hand on the glass, staring at Captain Comet like the bear held the answer to a prayer he'd stopped saying 20 years ago. I should have walked away, but something in his eyes, something ancient and broken, stopped me cold. And in that moment, I realized this delivery wasn't late. It was right on time. People think memory fades like old photographs. That trauma erases the sharpest edges and leaves only fog. But some memories don't fade. Some live under your skin like splinters, aching when the weather turns cold. That night, after Calvin Mercer stared at Captain Comet like he'd seen a ghost, I should have walked away, should have forced him to sign the damn delivery slip, gotten back in my cab, and left him in his castle of glass and marble. But I didn't. Instead, I stood there like an idiot, clutching my clipboard while this titan of industry stood frozen beside my truck, eyes locked on a ragged teddy bear like it held the meaning of life. Finally, I cleared my throat. Look, are you gonna sign or... He turned toward me slowly. His voice was hoarse. What's your name? Grace. Grace Nolan. He repeated it soft, reverent. Grace Nolan. Then, without another word, he turned and walked back into the house. No signature, no form, nothing. Just vanished. The woman in the uniform came back out, all flustered and apologetic, trying to play it off. I'm terribly sorry. Mr. Mercer has been unwell lately. He's had a difficult few years. I'll take care of the paperwork. I left without another word, but the silence in the cab as I drove away was deafening. I kept looking in the mirror at that stupid bear swaying gently from the chain. What had just happened? 3 days later, I saw him again. I was at Murphy's truck stop outside Cheyenne, shoveling down meatloaf and mashed potatoes in a booth that smelled like stale coffee and spilled diesel. That's when a man slid into the seat across from me like we were old friends. Sorry this seat's taken, I muttered, barely looking up. Mind if I sit anyway? Place is packed. These knees aren't made for standing. I finally glanced up and froze. He looked different. Flannel shirt, faded jeans, weathered ball cap. But it was him, Calvin Mercer, dressed like a retired trucker from Montana. What the hell? I'm Rick, he said, offering a hand. Rick Morrison, drove rigs for 30 years. Grace? I replied cautiously, shaking his hand. You, follow me or something? He chuckled. Nah, just killing time. My daughter lives an hour away. I stop at Murphy's when I'm nearby. Brings back memories. Liar. But there was something about him, something soft under the facade, the way his eyes lingered on Captain Comet through the window, the way his shoulders seemed to carry 1,000 invisible bricks. You're young to be driving solo, he said. How long you been at it? 9 years. Started at 18. No family? I shook my head. Grew up in foster care. No birth records, no parents. Just a nun who found me wandering the streets in Salt Lake. Said I had a concussion, maybe some memory loss. He went still. I saw his knuckles whiten around the coffee cup. You don't remember anything before that? Just flashes. Music. Laughter. A man reading me stories in a deep voice. There's this one I always remember. A princess who rescues a dragon. He'd do all the voices. His eyes shimmered. He looked away. I had this bear, I said quietly, nodding to the mirror. Captain Comet. He's the only thing I had when they found me. I've carried him ever since. Don't even know where he came from. He looked back at me then, and something in his expression shattered me. It wasn't pity. It wasn't curiosity. It was love. The kind of love people don't fake. That night, I parked my rig outside a rest stop near Grand Junction, stared at the ceiling of the cab, and couldn't sleep. Something was wrong. Something was big. I didn't believe in fate or magic or soul connections. But ever since that delivery, since that man, Calvin or Rick or whatever, saw my bear, things hadn't felt real. I kept dreaming of a house with white columns and music drifting through long hallways, of a warm voice reading bedtime stories, of a woman's cold smile, and the feeling of danger just outside the nursery door. I sat up suddenly, heart pounding. I'd never told anyone about the dreams, so how had Rick known the story about the dragon? How had he looked at my bear like it broke him? The next morning, I drove to a diner just outside Aspen, needed coffee, needed answers, and there he was, again, already sitting in a booth. This time, I didn't ask if he followed me. This time, I slid into the seat across from him and looked him in the eye. Who are you, really? He didn't flinch. My name is Calvin Mercer, he said softly, and I think you're my daughter. I didn't answer right away. How could I? The man across from me wasn't just claiming to know who I was. He was claiming to be the father I'd never known, the father I'd stopped believing in years ago. Look, Mr. Mercer. Calvin, he said softly. I shook my head. I don't know what kind of fantasy you're chasing, but I'm not her. I've been Grace Nolan my whole life. I don't even know where I was born. He slid something across the table. A photo. It was faded and bent, like it had been carried in a wallet for a long time. In it, a little girl about 7 years old sat on a man's shoulders. Same eyes as mine, same crooked front tooth, same bear in her arms. Captain Comet? No, it was impossible. Her name was Charlotte Mercer. We called her Charlie, Calvin whispered. She was taken 21 years ago during a charity gala at our home in Aspen. The security system had been overridden, guards knocked out. She disappeared without a trace. I stared at the picture. My throat felt like sandpaper. My lungs forgot how to breathe. She was never found, he continued, voice cracking. But I never stopped looking. I hired every investigator I could find, every child I passed on the street. I looked twice, wondered, hoped. I prayed she was alive, even if she didn't remember me. He paused. Then I saw your bear. My chest constricted. I had it made for her, custom, by an artist in Santa Fe. One of a kind, blue with a golden star, her favorite colors. She named him Captain Comet. Everything inside me said to get up and run, that this was too much, too fast, too unreal. But the photo, the bear, the voice in the dreams, all matched. Still, I said what I had to say. You have no proof. He nodded. You're right, which is why I asked my investigator to run a DNA test from the coffee cup you left at Murphy. I froze. You, what? I needed to know before I told you. I couldn't put you through this if I was wrong. And? He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope, thick, official looking. I didn't touch it. I'm your father, Grace. Or Charlotte, whatever name you want to use. But I swear to you, I never stopped loving you. Not for a single second. I couldn't speak, couldn't think, so I ran out the diner door, into the blinding Colorado sunlight, away from the truth I wasn't ready to face. But the truth doesn't wait, and sometimes it hunts. That night, I got a call, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. Miss Nolan, a smooth voice said. This is Marcus Reed, private investigator, working with Mr. Mercer. I need to warn you, you're in danger. I blinked, heart slamming into my ribs. What the hell are you talking about? We believe the woman who orchestrated your kidnapping 21 years ago has discovered that you're alive. What? Her name is Vivian's Mercer Hale, Calvin's sister. She was nearly bankrupt when you were taken. Months after the ransom was paid, her investment firm suddenly received a $50 million 0 cents injection. We've traced it back to the ransom. I swallowed hard. But why? Why would she take a kid? Because you were the heir. Without you, she stood to inherit the entire Mercer estate. My stomach twisted. We have reason to believe she thought you were dead. But now that she knows otherwise, the line crackled. She may try to correct her mistake. 2 days later, I got a job offer that sounded too good to be true. $5,000 0 cents rush delivery, medical supplies, pick up at a warehouse on the edge of Denver, no address verification, no contract, just a phone number. My gut told me to say no, but my truck was coughing oil, my tires were nearly bald, and St. Catherine's, the children's home that raised me, had just launched a fundraiser for new beds. $5,000 0 cents would fix everything. So I said yes. When I pulled into the warehouse lot, I knew I'd made a mistake. It was quiet, too quiet. Half the windows were boarded up, the parking lot cracked and overgrown. Only one black SUV sat near loading dock 7. I stepped out of my rig, hand on the pepper spray in my jacket. The dock door rolled open. 2 men stepped out, not in uniforms, no clipboards, no shipping labels. Grace Nolan? The taller one asked. He had a scar running down his jaw. That's me, I said, voice tight. Where's the load? He smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. You are the cargo. I didn't wait, didn't think. I ran. 9 years of trucking had taught me how to handle drunks, thieves, and creeps. But this was different. This was lethal. They chased me. I barely made it to the cab. As I turned the ignition, a bullet shattered my passenger window. Glass exploded across the seat. Captain Comet tumbled to the floor. The engine roared to life, and I floored it, tearing out of the lot, just as one of the men lunged for my door. In the rearview mirror, I saw the SUV whip around and give chase. I was being hunted, and I had no idea why a woman I couldn't remember wanted me dead. All I knew was this: whatever story I thought I knew about my life, it had just been burned to the ground. I always thought fear had a sound: screaming, gunshots, sirens. But real fear is silent. It's the roar of blood in your ears, the thud of your own heartbeat choking your breath. That's what I heard as I flew down I-70, snow flurries slicing across my windshield like glass. The black SUV behind me matched every turn, every speed change, staying just out of reach, like a shadow I couldn't shake. I was no stranger to danger. I'd slept in sketchy lots and pulled knives on men twice my size. But this was different. This was intent. I wasn't being followed. I was being hunted. The voice crackled over the CB radio. Breaker 19, this is Big Dog looking for that pretty lady in the blue Peterbilt. You got your ears on, darling. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't the man who'd called about the delivery. This was someone else. Someone who already knew the color of my rig. I grabbed the mic with a shaky hand. Who is this? A different voice replied. A woman's. Smooth. Cold. Cultured. There's no need for dramatics, Charlotte. That name. It hit like a lightning bolt to the chest. I don't know who you are, I said. Oh, but you do. Somewhere deep down you remember me. I used to tuck your hair behind your ear. You used to call me Auntie Viv. My mouth went dry. Images flickered. Marble floors, a perfume I couldn't name, the cold smile of a woman who never meant the hugs she gave. Not Charlotte, I growled. No? Then why are you running like her? I slammed the mic down and pressed the pedal harder. My tires squealed against the icy curves. The Rockies rose up ahead, brutal and towering, as I swerved onto a mountain pass. No cell signal, no backup. Just me, my rig, and a bear on the floorboard who'd seen too many nightmares. At mile marker 134, a white van joined the chase. Rear view showed them forming a triangle. SUV, van, and me boxed in the middle. They were hurting me, and I was heading right where they wanted. The road climbed higher, hugging the cliff. No shoulder, no guardrail, just a 1,000-foot drop to the ravine below. And then I saw him, a figure standing near the overlook, waving frantically. Rig. No, Calvin. I swerved. My rig fishtailed dangerously, and for a moment I thought I'd flip over, but somehow I straightened it out. As I neared the overlook, I made a split-second choice. I yanked the wheel and hit the brakes hard. My trailer jackknifed across the road, blocking the pass completely. The SUV behind me didn't have time to stop. It slammed into the trailer with a deafening crunch. Metal twisted, glass shattered, smoke hissed into the air. I tumbled out of the cab, boots hitting snowpack, lungs burning with adrenaline. "Grace!" Calvin shouted. He ran toward me, limping from the shoulder wound he'd taken days earlier. "Get away, she's—" A single gunshot cut him off. He jerked backward, clutching his chest. Blood bloomed through his shirt. "No!" I screamed, catching him before he fell. Behind him, she emerged, Vivian Mercer Hale, elegant, composed, deadly. She lowered her pistol with the kind of grace only the truly heartless possess. "I warned him," she said, voice calm. "I warned him to stop digging." I lowered Calvin to the ground. His breaths were shallow, his eyes fluttered. I stood, slowly. "You took everything from me." "No," she sneered. "He did. He made you the heir. He made me a side note. You were never supposed to exist." My hands curled into fists. "You orchestrated a kidnapping, lied to your own brother, let him bury an empty coffin, and now you want to finish what you started?" She tilted her head. "You've grown into quite the dramatic one, haven't you?" Another voice rang out. "Drop the gun." Marcus. He emerged from the shadows, blood crusted on his temple, his own weapon aimed squarely at Vivian's back. She didn't flinch. "I should have killed you too," she hissed. "Yeah," Marcus said coldly. "You should." A beat, a breath. Vivian dropped the gun. I ran to Calvin, pressed my hands to his chest, whispering, "Stay with me. Please, Dad. Please." His eyes opened, just barely. "You remember?" "Yes," I sobbed. "I remember everything." Helicopters arrived 15 minutes later. Sirens cut through the silence. Vivian was cuffed, hauled away like the villain she was. And as the medics loaded Calvin into the helicopter, I leaned close and whispered, "You came back for me. Now I'm coming back for you." The walls of the hospital waiting room were too white, too bright, too clean, like they were mocking the chaos still echoing inside me. I sat there for what felt like years, hands trembling, clothes crusted with my father's blood, Captain Comet clutched to my chest like a life preserver. Nurses walked by. Someone offered me coffee. I didn't move. I was afraid that if I blinked, he'd die. Marcus sat beside me, bandaged and stiff. "He's tough," he muttered. "Don't count him out yet." "He got shot twice because of me," I said through gritted teeth. "No," he said firmly. "He got shot for you. There's a difference." The surgeon finally came out around dawn. His eyes were bloodshot, his scrub stained. My heart stopped. "He's stable," the doctor said. "The bullet missed his heart by half an inch. We controlled the internal bleeding. It's a miracle he made it up that mountain alive." I nearly collapsed. "He's unconscious, but you can see him. Room 407. I was up before he finished the sentence. When I stepped into the room, I froze. He looked so small. My father, this man who'd stood like a mountain through everything, was pale, still, a web of wires and beeping machines surrounding him like vines. But his chest rose and fell and rose again. I sat at his bedside and took his hand. It was warm. "Hey," I whispered. "It's me, your little girl. You're Charlie." The machine beeped in steady rhythm as if it were answering me. I placed Captain Comet beside his pillow, exactly where he used to sleep when I was a kid. My fingers brushed the crooked star on his chest, the scar on his arm. "Remember this guy? You said he'd protect me forever." I laughed bitterly. "Turns out I needed both of you to survive." His fingers twitched. Tears spilled before I even realized they'd started. "Don't leave me again," I whispered. "I can't lose you twice." He woke up 2 days later. His first words? "Still can't believe that damn bear held up better than I did," I cried. He laughed, then winced because of the stitches, and suddenly it was like we were rewinding time, slowly stitching together a life that had unraveled 21 years ago. Vivian was behind bars by then. Her confession had been recorded on Marcus's body cam. The financial trail was airtight, and the FBI recovered a letter from Frank Delaney before his accident. The full story, every grim detail. She wouldn't be seeing daylight again, but let the past rot where it belonged. 6 weeks later, I stood in the doorway of a room I never thought I'd see again. My childhood bedroom. Everything had been left untouched. The canopy bed, the pink curtains, my tiny bookshelf filled with fairy tales, my clothes still hanging in the closet, waiting for a girl who never came home. I wasn't that little girl anymore, but something inside me ached at the sight, a forgotten heartbeat, remembering its rhythm. My dad walked in slowly, arm still in a sling. "I came in here every night," he said, read stories to the walls, hoped, prayed that somewhere, somehow, You could hear me. I turned to him. I think I did. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out something small. Captain Comet. He took the bear with shaking hands. He waited too. We both stared at the worn little bear sitting on the bed like he belonged there all along. Then Dad pulled something from his pocket, a velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with a star pendant, almost identical to the one on the bear's chest. I bought this for your 8th birthday, he said, the one we never got to celebrate. He fastened it around my neck, his hands trembling. So you'll always carry a piece of home, even if you're far away. I pressed the pendant to my heart. I think I've been trying to come home my entire life. You're here now, he whispered. We stood in silence, not because there was nothing left to say, but because, for the first time in 2 decades, we were finally complete.